Over the past 150 years, the Catholic Church has been one of the most outspoken critics of both communism and socialism, defending the right to private property and encouraging free, creative markets. For the billionth time, stop calling Pope Francis a communist. It's just not true. At the same time, it's also not true that just because we criticize socialism, that we're all for unrestricted capitalism. Although it doesn't get quite the same attention in the United States, all of the popes over the past century, not just Pope Francis, have been major critics of capitalism as well. What issues does the Catholic Church have with capitalism, and what sort of economy does it propose? This is Catholicism in Focus. In order to understand the Catholic critique of capitalism, we have to lay down a few principles at the center of our theology. I could just tell you that being a billionaire is probably a sin and that labor unions should be defended, but without the scriptural and historical basis, many might just dismiss these as political statements. We don't want that. While there are a plethora of principles that flow from the Bible and our tradition in the world, I'm going to focus on just the four most important ones: the Imago Dei, the common good, solidarity, and subsidiarity. From the Latin for the image of God, the principle of Imago Dei comes from the first book of Genesis, in which God is said to have created humanity in his image and likeness. Explaining the many implications of this principle requires its own video, which you can watch here, but in short, it means that there is a special dignity to human beings over and against other beings. We are conscious, rational, social, capable of worship, and given special responsibilities from God. These qualities are inherent to the human person, not earned, and so can never be lost. Every person, no matter who they are or what they do, has worth and so is due certain rights. And yes, I mean every person, even terrorists and Jets fans. Of course, we do not live as isolated individuals, but in societies, which is where the principle of the common good comes about. As the compendium of the social doctrine of the Church teaches, the human person cannot find fulfillment in himself, that is, apart from the fact that he exists with others and for others. God did not give the earth in all its fullness just to individuals, but to humanity for humanity. From our reading again of Genesis, we believe in what is called the universal destination of goods, that all comes from God for our use, but all ultimately belongs to God and will be returned to him. A just society, therefore, must be concerned not only with individual private property, but with the good of all people and of the whole person, for it is only together, in common, that we are able to achieve our highest purpose. This naturally leads to the third principle, solidarity, the interconnectedness we share with all other human life. Like it or not, your actions affect me and my actions affect you. I am my brother's keeper. Because of our common identity before God, St. Paul's passage about being one in Christ rings particularly true. If one part suffers, all parts suffer with it. If one part is honored, all parts share in its joy. This requires more than just sympathy towards or awareness of another's plight, but must issue forth in the work of justice. Solidarity must be seen above all in its value as a moral virtue that determines the order of institutions. On the basis of this principle, the structures of sin that dominate relationships between individuals and people must be overcome. They must be purified and transformed into structures of solidarity through the creation of appropriate modification of laws, market regulations, and juridical systems. Systems that benefit some while dehumanizing others must be dismantled and replaced with just systems. Even if the majority of people are better off, it cannot be on the backs of a few. We must be united with and responsible for every human being. And how we do this is through the final principle, subsidiarity. From the individual family all the way up to international bodies of government, each level of society has something it is capable of doing, and it should be responsible for the problems it can solve. Subsidiarity says that the lowest competent level of society should take care of an issue. If a local community can effectively handle a problem, there's no need to get permission from or waste the resources of the state or federal government. We don't need the president to set a bedtime for your kids or local parking ordinances. However, there are certain issues that go beyond one's purview or expertise. Because of our interconnectedness, it is not advisable for each individual city to come up with its own protocols on the disposal of toxic materials or for states to determine how to go to war. In such situations, an overarching body that can weigh the concerns of all is necessary. All right, so we've gotten the introduction out of the way. I know it took a while to get here, but you can see why taking the time to lay the foundation is so important. For Catholics, an economic system is not just about money. Its central concern is of the human person, which is why there are certain aspects of capitalism that are lauded by the Catholic Church, like the insistence on private property. The Church taught in 1891, The first and most fundamental principle, therefore, if one would undertake to alleviate the condition of the masses, must be the inviolability of private property. The same is true about the free market. According to Pope John Paul II, capitalism supports creativity and human initiative. The free market is the most efficient instrument for utilizing resources and effectively responding to needs. Especially in a global setting, the trades of goods and services across nations can not only benefit the producers of goods, but the world as a whole. As the common saying goes, a rising tide lifts all boats. In Caritas in Veritate, Pope Benedict XVI taught that trade, when fair and equitable, can help bridge inequalities and foster solidarity among peoples. At its best, when capitalism keeps humanity at the center and remembers it has a responsibility to its employees, communities, and the wider society, it can be a tremendous force for good. The problem, of course, is that humanity is often not at the center, especially of late. In the 1970s, the American economist Milton Friedman significantly changed the economic approach of most businesses. Quote, "The social responsibility of business is to increase its profits." Over the past 50 years, a move towards deregulation, privatization, lower taxes for corporations, and a focus on short-term profit for shareholders over the long-term concerns of the common good has had catastrophic effects on our world, resulting in any number of economic and social problems. In the second half of this video, I'd like to outline 5 such problems and why this is a problem for Catholics. First, and probably felt most clearly by the average person, is the outrageous shift of wealth and power to just a few people and the growing inequality between classes. From 1983 to 2016, upper-class families increased their wealth by more than 70%, while middle and lower-class families saw their wealth cut in half. Today, it's estimated that the top 1% of people control 51% of all wealth, and the bottom 50% of people control just 1%. This is a major injustice. Capitalism that focuses only on profits has no incentive to fix this, but will continue to use its power to take more and more money for the super rich. Which is why, believe it or not, over the past few decades, popes have advocated for just laws and forms of redistribution governed by politics, a worldwide redistribution of energy resources, agrarian reform that breaks up major land holdings, and institutions and mechanisms that allow for the immediate redistribution of riches and of control over them. In doing so, the Church is not advocating for communism, some form of pure equality. What it's doing is echoing what ancient saints like St. Basil the Great taught. The extra coat in your closet belongs to the poor. Amassing millions of dollars while many are starving is a grave sin. Of course, inequality only tells part of the story. The bigger question is how we got here, which largely involves the exploitation of workers. As benefits and protections for CEOs have skyrocketed over the past 50 years, the wages of most employees, adjusted for inflation, has stayed the same or even dropped. At-will employment in many states allows companies to fire employees for any reason with no protection, and right-to-work states allow employees to work without joining a union, effectively negating any collective bargaining power employees may have. Some companies even engage in wage theft, that is, forcing employees to work overtime without any extra pay. They provide poor working conditions, hire employees as independent contractors so they aren't due any benefits, exploit undocumented immigrants who have no recourse to the law, or simply move jobs offshore to pay employees pennies on the dollar. When the highest goal is increased profits, employees are just an expense on the bottom line to be reduced. The Catholic Church is one that has always supported livable wages, defended the right to unionize, demanded safe working conditions, and insisted that work be a fulfilling way to support one's family. As the Second Vatican Council promulgated in Gaudium et Spes, the beginning, the subject, and the goal of all social institutions is and must be the human person. Unfortunately, though, humans are not the only ones exploited by unchecked capitalism. The created order is consistently and irreparably harmed by the pursuit of more money. Fueled by consumerism and what Pope Francis has called throwaway culture, humanity has viewed the earth as an infinite resource to be exploited. No concern is given to the effect pollution, deforestation, strip mining, overfishing, and overconsumption in general has on the world around us. Not only does it destroy natural environments and entire biomes, it has a degrading effect on human life as well. Exposure to atmospheric pollutants produces a broad spectrum of health hazards, especially for the poor, and causes millions of premature deaths. Without any sense of the common good or responsibility to our common home, Capitalism that is focused only on short-term profits is creating a near unlivable earth in many places, leaving a horrible mess for future generations. A mess that is already being felt most by poorer nations, people being exploited for their resources and left in shambles. Many intensive forms of environmental exploitation and degradation not only exploit the resources which provide local communities with their livelihood, but also undo the social structures which, for a long time, shaped cultural identity and their sense of the meaning of life and community. When desperately poor countries and communities find that they are rich in natural resources, they are not afforded the option to think long-term. They will mortgage their future to survive today, allowing themselves to be exploited by richer nations. This means cutting down rainforests, engaging in irreversible drilling and mining, and receiving the waste of the overdeveloped world. Products do not magically show up on our shelves. More times than not, they come at the hands of exploited workers in the third world, using resources stripped from countries that can't afford to keep them. The rich take from the poor with no concern for the effects it has on the poor. But stocks are up and costs are low, signs of a good economy, right? And finally, one cannot overlook the effects that overconsumption, privatization, and the exploitation of labor have on the family. Although the link is not as clear, it is still devastating. At its best, work is an opportunity to find self-actualization and to provide for one's family. In reality, it's often a place of dehumanization and overwork, leading to gross inequalities, work-life imbalance, materialism, the commodification of relationships, weakened health in the poor, and less time spent with children, to name just a few effects. The privatization of many social institutions and significant drop in funding for public services has led to immense disparities in the quality and the effective resegregation of schools, fewer libraries, fewer opportunities for leisure, and increased costs for healthcare, again, just to name a few. Families have become more isolated, more divided, and with fewer resources than before, focused less on relationships than on consuming, and frankly, surviving. This is a fundamental flaw of capitalism as it's experienced today because it fails the fundamental purpose of the economy as taught by Pope John Paul II. The economy must serve people, not the other way around. Work is for man, not man for work. The capitalism of the last 50 years, focused primarily on profits, does not serve people. It serves the unlimited growth of wealth for a few people at the expense of others. This is a problem. A problem, we should note, that is not inevitable to capitalism or beyond fixing. While the economic world was certainly not perfect in the 1930s through 1960s, this period of history shows that economic growth and moral responsibility are not at odds. Private property and free global markets can be good things and even make some people rich. But how rich is too rich? At what point do profits overshadow humans? For Catholics, equality is not the goal, it's dignity and responsibility. Any economy that makes a few people rich by exploiting the many is an evil institution, whether that be capitalism or communism, and it must be resisted or dismantled.